my next guest for you folks in this last hour, winding down this last hour of the day, and we are on Monday through Friday, heard around the world by way of radio and their internet. So make sure you get the word out. I appreciate the emails and letters that we're getting about the Jesse Lee Peterson Show. If you'd like to call in, lines are open at 888-77-JESSE. There's no I in the Jesse part, so don't look for an I. It's just Jesse. We have another Reverend with us for this last hour, Reverend Jerry Stephenson. He is the author of a book, Out of the Closet and Into the Light. So that should be very interesting. He's also with an organization called Truth Wins Out. He's a spokesperson for that organization. And Reverend Stephenson, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
What is Truth Wins Out?
Well, basically, Truth Wins Out basically was brought into existence as we were trying to bring truth out of the ex-gay movement. And our organization sought to basically bring the truth out about these organizations and how that the ex-gay movement doesn't really change anybody, but that a lot of people within these organizations basically are telling two different stories. And so Truth Wins Out went undercover, and basically we began to uncover the ex-gay movement around the country, and basically we uncovered some stories of some of the biggest poster boys of the ex-gay movement.
So ex-gay movement are people who are was in the lifestyle and they were able to overcome.
Well, they say that they're able to overcome, and of course, through our organization, Truth Wins Out, and of course, through many stories, including my own, we know that you can't change who you are, whether you're heterosexual or homosexual. So that's what Truth Wins Out has been doing over the last number of years.
And Reverend, I don't know if I should ask you this on the air or not, so you don't have to answer it, but are you a homosexual?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. And these folks who are saying that they are overcoming homosexuality within these different organizations, you are finding that they are not overcoming?
Right. In other words, through our organization, what we did, which is it's unfortunate on their part, but basically we uncovered their stories that they were saying that they had changed, but in reality they did not.
What is the purpose of trying to prove that they did not or have not overcome? Why are you trying to prove that?
Well, the whole point is trying to prove this is so that we don't bring continuous emotional, physical, and spiritual damage to people's lives who are trying to change something that they can't change. And so even though it was unfortunate, it was very powerful when Wayne, through his first book, Anything But Straight, of course, unmasked the scandals that's behind the ex-gay movement. And that is that their leaders who are saying that they have changed really in reality haven't.
But shouldn't those folks have the right to want to overcome it, to try and overcome, or to even claim that they have overcome it? Shouldn't they have the right of privacy and the ability to overcome that lifestyle if they want to?
Well, if they want to get out and lie to the world, which is what they're doing, it's one thing to tell the truth. It's another thing to tell a lie. And when
but why shouldn't they have the right to lie about the lifestyle? They may not want people to know. Why shouldn't they have the right to hide it?
Well, when they go back out and they're back into the lifestyle, quote, as they call it, then, you can't get out here and be a spokesman saying that you have changed when in reality you haven't. And, that's a big accountability when people who are trying to change because some spokesman says that they have changed, but in reality they haven't. Then, you're dealing with people's lives. We're talking, people's physical lives. And, of course, I'm always concerned about their spiritual lives and their emotional lives. So definitely these people need to be brought out, because such groups as the ex-gay movement, Exodus International, and whatever other groups out there are preaching a false message, which is bringing destruction to many people's lives.
But there are people men and women, who have overcome the lifestyle. They have not returned to it.
Yeah,
what do you say about those folks?
Yeah, well, they say that, and I've done many talk shows, and I've done many radio shows, and, one by one, truth wins out, keeps bringing these people out into the forefront that they haven't changed. And these are the leaders of the ex-gay movement. And that, to me, from John Polk all the way, down to, Colin Cook, whom I debated with on the Phil Donahue show, told millions of people he changed, but until he was found out, of course, he hadn't changed. And so that's the whole reason of our group is let's tell the truth. Let's quit lying.
Reverend, why should society accept homosexuality as a norm?
Well, because it is a norm. I think that, until, we start looking at what science keeps showing, the studies that keep being done, that shows definitely a genetic link from the XY chromosome that was done by the American Cancer Society, other studies that have done, that it is a norm. And
what's normal about it? Tell me what is normal about it.
Well, it's normal because God created us this way. That's the normal. That's very simple. I mean, we can go to science and we can show that it's been normal. Studies that have been done by people such as Dr. Marmore, who did a study that showed that it's very natural and that it's very normal, as normal as heterosexuality. And
but most people are not homosexuals. You only have, in this country alone, you only have less than 2% who are homosexual. Most people are straight people.
Yeah, 10%, because, and I think it's higher than that.
Yes, you definitely have different stats out there. When you get the stats from the homosexuals, you hear 10%, but when you get it from other means, it shows 2% or less.
Well, that's funny because, that's what makes me laugh, that while the radical, fundamentalist Christian group says 2%, it doesn't come out of the studies, from any, groups that do studies on sexuality, and I think we're going to find it's even higher than 10%. But, it's funny to me how we'll say it's only 2%, but then we go to Scripture and we'll tell everybody that a whole group of people were all homosexual. And, of course, that's the whole Sodom and Gomorrah story that we say they were all homosexual and it destroyed. So it's amazing how we conflict our facts.
Well, they don't say that they were all homosexuals in Sodom and Gomorrah. It just says that it was overtaken by homosexuals. They had all kinds of sins going on there, and that included homosexuality. They don't say that everybody in the town was homosexual.
Yeah, well, and of course they say that it was homosexuality that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, which is untrue. And it wasn't even homosexuality at all. Of course, that's amazing to me how we go to that passage, and of course we make these kind of statements that are truly unfounded as to what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Where in the Bible does it say that God created homosexuals or God approved of homosexuality? I know it says that God is against it. He hates that spirit of homosexuality. Where in the Bible does it say he approves it or he created it?
Well, first of all, let's correct what you're saying. God doesn't say anything against homosexuality. We'll make that very clear.
When he says that man should labor with one another, it was abomination.
Well, let me correct your theology. First of all, you just quoted part of not even a verse. And, as a theologian and as a seminary professor, I would say, shame on you that you would ever quote to me part of a passage. If you're going to quote me something, quote the whole Levitical law from chapter 18 to 20. Don't sit there and give me part of a verse. And then, of course, you and I could go back and forth on what the word abomination means, which
it means hate.
Which I doubt if you even know what the Hebrew word is.
Reverend, where in the Bible does...
now you're not even answering my question.
But I just gave it to you. I don't want to argue with you about it. I'm just telling you, the Bible clearly states that man and man should not lay together as man and woman.
Well, it also says in the same passage that you shouldn't shave the sides of your hair, you shouldn't harm your beard, and you shouldn't eat meat with blood. So if we're going to start going through passages, then let's give a proper hermeneutical process to the passage.
Reverend Stephenson, let me
but I won't answer your question since you're not answering mine.
Hold that thought, though. Let me take a quick break, Reverend. We'll come back to you, okay? 888-77-JESSE, 888-77-53773. Reverend Jerry Stephenson is my guest. Lines are wide open. Back in a moment. Reverend Jerry Stephenson is my guest. Jesse Lee Peterson is my name. Thank you so much. Also, you can email us during the show as well at bond@bondinfo.org. bond@bond.org. And we will be taking your call on the air, so appreciate your patience with me. 888-77-JESSE, if you'd like to jump in there, we do have a line open. I am talking to the Reverend about, he's the spokesman for Truth Wins Out, and what his organization does, they go out and expose those organizations, ex-gay movement organization, where some folks have been able to overcome the lifestyle. His organization proves that they don't really overcome, even though there are some who have overcome and are moving forward. He's also the author of a book, Out of the Closet and Into the Light, and we're going to be talking about that. Reverend, I gave you a quick example of the Bible speaking against homosexuality.
Right.
I didn't get into the whole scripture because of time, but it's clear in the Bible that God does not support the spirit of homosexuality. You said that he does. Where in the Bible where he supports homosexuality?
Well, the fact is, just because it doesn't say something doesn't mean that it's not so. But I'll give you this analogy, which I think is good. Now, I happen to believe in the creation story, Adam and Eve. Many people don't, because it's only in the Bible that, Adam and Eve are ever mentioned. It's never mentioned anywhere else in historical records or anything. But yet there's more proof to prove homosexuality historically, because ever since the written page, we of course have had the subject of homosexuality. So the fact that
we have had the subject of all sin, Reverend. We've always had sin around. You're absolutely right about that.
Well, I don't call that sin. We're all sinful. Romans 3:23 is very clear on that. But when we look at, of course, I guess, I in my book, I definitely, of course, prove that none of the passages that people are quoting against homosexuality is even about homosexuality. It's about pagan worship. It's about, idolatry in that sense.
But you've not given me a scripture in support of homosexuality.
Well, I don't have to have proof other than the fact that Jesus himself in Matthew 10 never said nothing against homosexuality, yet he had the opportunity. And of course, we know the story that Jesus was sending the disciples out 2 by 2. And of course, he says, when you come to
what did that mean? What did that mean to you if he sent them out 2 by 2?
Well, what Jesus said was that basically that he was talking about hospitality.
Are you saying that they were going out as homosexuals?
No. These were people going out together. I'm just telling you the story to the listeners so that they know what's going on. And Jesus says, if you come to a house that doesn't accept you, then just wipe off your feet and go on. Jesus said, as such as this, so will it be as it was in the day of Sodom and Gomorrah. Never mentioned homosexuality. He talked about inhospitality, which really was the issue of Sodom and Gomorrah with Lot.
I want to move forward. So you're not able. I want to move forward with this because I have so many questions to ask you, Reverend. Definitely. You're not able to give me any scriptures in support of homosexuality as I gave you against homosexuality, right?
Well, it wasn't an issue. Nor can we give proof of how African Americans came about, how...
But Reverend, if it wasn't an issue, why did he bother to say
it wasn't an issue?
He's against homosexuality. Why would he bother?
And that's what I'm trying to say to you. It had nothing to do with homosexuality. It had to do with pagan worship. That's the whole issue of every passage that you can quote to me where you want to insert that it's talking about homosexuality.
So when he said that two men should not lay together or two women should not lay together as a man and woman, that it was abomination against God.
Well, that's right.
Are you saying that wasn't against homosexuality?
No, that wasn't the issue at all. And if you knew your Hebrew, you wouldn't be asking me that question on the word abomination. And
what does abomination mean in Hebrew?
In Hebrew, the Hebrew word there is yada, and in its understanding, and if you knew your history and you knew the hermeneutical principles and how we interpret scriptures, and you look at that, when God came to Moses and gave what we call that the holiness code, Leviticus 18 through 20, that when he said it's an abomination, he wasn't talking a moral issue. He was talking a spiritual issue because the people of Israel would not worship the one true God. So God came to Moses, just like a parent would come to their child who, let's say, did something wrong and they were put on disciplinary, that they had to have a curfew at 10 o'clock. They couldn't do this, do that, even though it's not wrong not to go after 10, but because they did something, they therefore suffered because they had to stay home at 10. Same thing with God with the people of Israel. He set down some laws that weren't morally wrong. They were spiritually, he set down things strict for them because they had disobeyed God. And that's why you can't shave your head. You can't cut your beard.
There are men and women, and I've counseled with many of them. Some have overcome, but there are men and women who have conflict within themselves as a result of that spirit making a home in them. They know something is wrong with it, but they're not sure how to overcome it, and they don't accept it as a norm. There's no conflict with being straight. If homosexuality is normal, why do people have so much inner conflict about it?
Well, because when you have a religious group,
it's not based on religion. They're born when they discover that they have the spirit inside of them. It has nothing to do with religion.
Well, when the conflict comes in from the religious point, in that you're telling them they're going to hell for being
no, that's not. They have the conflict before they hear that, Reverend.
No, they don't. They have the conflict because that's what much of society, which is now changing, thank God. But the radical religious Christian groups, it's always been their message, and that's the sad irony. But when people like myself, and of course being a psychologist also, I do realize that people realize when they see the facts, that they realize who they are, and they get over that false guilt, the false shame, that there's somebody who is terrible.
But that's not why they feel that way. I'm sure you can find some people who are feeling that way as a result of public scrutiny. But for the most part, Reverend, the conflict comes from within, because within themselves, they know that something is wrong with that spirit inside of them.
Well, when you're told by the church from the time you're a little kid all the way up that homosexuality is wrong, of course you're going to believe that. But once you get to a place like myself and so many other wonderful gay and lesbian Christians, that we realize that there was nothing wrong with us, that God loved us for who he made us to be.
Speaking of your credentials,
and I think that's powerful when we know that. John 8:32 says, when we know the truth will set us free. And I think that's awesome when we know truth like that. And that's what my book talks about, out of the closet into the light.
And I do want to get into your book too, but I just want to say for my audience here that you have a degree, a BS degree from Miami Christian College.
Uh-huh.
You also have a MA degree from Miami Christian.
Mm-hmm.
You graduated from Luther Rice University. You have a PhD degree from Atlanta Institute of Bible College and Seminary. So you are a reverend with lots of degrees. Yes. I am not familiar with those schools. Are those straight schools or gay schools?
No, those are all straight schools.
All straight.
And you didn't mention North Florida Baptist Theological, where I got 2 degrees.
Right. While going through those schools, did the professors say that homosexuality was normal, or did they?
It's amazing that when I went to seminary to what I see now in seminaries, because I've done some research and, of course, went into some schools. When I was in seminary, these were never issues, thank God. They weren't issues that we dealt with. Today, seminaries have become, it's amazing as I talk to some people who are going to seminary that they say, gosh, every class is about abortion, homosexuality, women, and I think every class, it's amazing. Those become the dominant issues.
Well, maybe because during this, how old are you, Reverend?
I'm now 50.
So maybe when you were going to school, the homosexuals were not out of the closet as they are today. Maybe that's why it wasn't a big upfront issue.
More truth and more facts are out there. And, as we continue to see, especially in the area of psychology and stuff, and even in Christian circles, that more and more churches are waking up to the truth that such books as mine that tell the truth, that they're coming to the realization that this is, and of course that's why I think a lot of the more fundamental seminaries and stuff have made these such big issues.
There was the government passed a hate crime bill the other day, and I believe President Bush is going to veto the bill. Were you in support of the homosexual hate crime bill?
Definitely. And I think that how sad that the president, who will call himself a Christian, but then will not see the many stories that have been told and the many facts that have been presented, that there's no doubt that the hate crimes, of course, we see this through history, that when any group becomes the whipping post, that the hate crimes against such groups.
Well, don't you think that all crime is hate crime?
Pardon me?
Don't you think, or do you think that all crime is hate crime?
I think that not all crime is hate crime.
Yes.
Well, when it's against a person, it's got to be hate.
Right. So why do we need another hate crime bill?
Well, we need definitely for ourselves. There's no protection for homosexuality.
But, Reverend, the homosexuals tend not to tell the truth. They tend to exaggerate or lie about what's happening in their community in order to get these bills passed of false sympathy.
So all the stories that we have told,
they exaggerate.
Are lies. I fail to see that. I think the stories that we've presented are very true stories. Matthew Shepard, Lord have mercy, how many more stories do we have to tell to show such hate crime?
But there were different opinions about Matthew's story. Some are saying that he forced himself upon those guys, and they just fought back.
Also, they had a right for them just to hang him onto a fence and kill him. How ironic that you would say it's okay to do that. It's not okay to kill anybody. I don't care what it is.
I didn't say that it was, but...
Well, that's just what you just said.
No, but what I'm saying, Reverend, is that if homosexuals didn't try to impose themselves upon people, I think that most people wouldn't have an issue with it.
I don't think that's how the story went. If you read the story of what happened with Matthew Shepard, they took him out and hung him onto a fence, two people, and because he was... But
they didn't do it because, according to the other side of the story, Reverend, they didn't do it because he was a homosexual.
Oh, yes, they did. That's the whole point of what the bill was and what has made the story come to truth. Also,
this bill, Reverend, would prevent, if passed, would prevent radio talk show hosts and many preachers from speaking against homosexuality. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I think that if anything we ought to do is definitely, pass more bills like that, because you know what? Let's go back in history and look.
Hold that thought, Reverend. To be fair to you, hold that thought. We're at the bottom of the hour here. 888-77-JESSE, 888-77-53773. I'm going to get to your calls, folks. I appreciate your patience. Back in a moment. We are back. Winding down the last hour of the Jesse Lee Peterson Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Visit my website at bondinfo.org, bondinfo.org. We are rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. My guest right now is Reverend Jerry Stephenson. He's the author of Out of the Closet and Into the Light. He also is the spokesperson for an organization, Truth Wins Out, where they expose ex-gay organizations out there who are helping homosexuals to overcome the lifestyle. The Reverend says that it's not true. You can't overcome, even though there are witnesses out there who are living a straight life as opposed to a homosexual life. If you'd like to speak with the Reverend, we do have, let's see here, it look like a line open if somebody want to jump in there, 888-77-TALK. Reverend, before I get back into the question, we lost a great man yesterday, Reverend Jerry Falwell.
Yes.
He was the leader in the conservative movement. He was the leader, one of the leaders, great leaders in exposing evil so that people can see the right way to go and make the right decision. Of course, he dealt with pornography and homosexuality and all that stuff. Were you saddened at his loss?
Well, I'm truly saddened when anyone dies. I'm a hospice chaplain, and, I give my condolences to his family and to the church and to Liberty University. There's no doubt that they have lost somebody that was very important to them.
What?
And I don't agree with all of his ideas, and I hope that when he arrived in heaven that he truly saw what grace was all about. I believe that he missed the mark on what true grace is all about.
What do you say to those homosexual websites who are celebrating the death of Reverend Falwell?
Well, I'm glad that, we did not do that.
Yeah.
That I find it sad that when any group, I don't care whether it's for or against a group, that we should never celebrate the death of anyone. Jerry Falwell had a right to his opinion. Jerry Falwell and I go down the same road. He got an honorary from North Florida Baptist Theological Seminary the year that I got my doctorate. So, I'm saddened. I just didn't agree with all of his ideas.
Reverend, gay people are fighting for marriage. They want to be married as a man and woman.
Yes.
First of all, do you support that?
Oh, I do. Truly, I do.
And if you support that, would you support a man who says, you know what, I deserve to have 3 wives or 4 wives? Or a woman who says, I love myself and I want to marry myself, and legally I should be able to do that and accept it. Or someone who says, I want to marry my daughter. I have a right. Would you support those ideas as well?
I mean, why even make such stupid, idiotic comments of that sort?
What's stupid about that?
I guess I would go for 3 or 4 wives. I mean, my gosh, Abraham had 100 wives. So I guess it was okay in the Old Testament. We could say it's okay today. But to start going into other things that is, totally, stupid. I wouldn't.
But what is stupid about those people, Reverend? What is stupid about those people wanting to have their right to do what they want?
Well, the right to marriage should be the right for anybody. It's amazing how, groups like yours will say, look at that, you guys are living in sin with one another. But then you don't allow us to be able to have a legit marriage, which gives us over 1,500 more rights, which we don't have, and that we then make it legit in our eyes before God, in our churches that support gay and lesbian marriages. Why not? I think it's a beautiful thing.
If you okay a marriage between 2 men or 2 women,
definitely,
you destabilize a society.
Destabilize what?
This society will fall apart.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, there we go back. We go back and start, this is what's going to destroy the world, homosexuality. We went back, it was the Jews. They're going to destroy the world.
What is wrong with...
And so Hitler had 100 million Jews killed. Please, let's stop with that kind of rhetoric that I will not. That's just right down wrong.
Reverend, what is wrong with a man marrying his daughter?
About the beautiful things in this country. We got many relationships that have been together many, many years. We promote family. We have children. So
but you cannot create a family.
Pardon me?
2 homosexuals together cannot create a family.
Why not? What is a family? Let's look at what a family is.
A family is
not a mom and 2 children, a mom and dad and 2 children.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
A family is a husband and wife and children.
Oh, really? Well, we know that Jesus grew up most of his life with a single mother. So I don't understand.
You can't compare that, Reverend.
Let's go to Christ's own life.
No, you can't compare that. That was different than what we...
No, it's not different.
Reverend.
Moses grew up with foster parents. So, I don't... And you have many single mothers who have children.
So do you disagree? Hold on, Reverend, hold on. Because of time, hold on, and we want to take some calls. Do you disagree that a family is a married husband, man and woman, and children?
No, because in the Old Testament,
that's not a family?
Families were the people of Israel. Family was, the word we use today is a 20th century term.
But homosexuality is about sex. It's not about...
No, it's not about sex.
It is about sex.
We don't spend our time any more than anybody else does thinking about sex.
But that's what made you a homosexual, right?
We have children.
Reverend, that's what makes
you... No, that's what you think, but that's not what we think.
Well, what makes you a homosexual then? If it's not about sex, what makes you a homosexual?
Homosexual is just the same as heterosexual. It's our orientation. It has nothing to do with what I do with my privates now.
But, Reverend...
Homosexual, if you're going to do that, then let's go ahead and look at history. Then that means every king that had anal sex with another king in the Old Testament, and that's historically a fact, and that made him a homosexual.
If he did what you just said, he did, yeah.
Everybody that has had a homosexual experience, now we go into psychology, Kinsey Institute has stated...
Reverend, let's go back to the family issue. Hold on. Let's go back to the marriage because of time. Let's go back to the marriage. A marriage, homosexuals want to get married. And I ask, if America should allow that to happen, should we allow a father to marry his daughter or a mother to marry her son if they want to?
It's ridiculous to make those kind of statements.
Why is that?
Because that's pedophilia.
But homosexuality is homosexuality.
No, it's not. Philadelphia. Don't you dare say that. That's totally wrong. Now, we know pedophiles, and I can go to Denver's Children's Hospital and all the other states and American Psychological Association and American Children's Association have made it very clear that pedophiles are mostly heterosexuals, and I'm not going to go there and allow you to say that about homosexuals.
But, Reverend, they also say homosexuality is wrong, too, and you seem to want to...
No, it's not
But
wrong.
Let me ask, you're not answering my question.
Well, I have answered your question. You're not hearing what I'm saying.
I know, but one other point about it, and then we'll move on. But these people should have the right, if we allow homosexuality to happen, these folks can decide who they love and who they want to marry, and why shouldn't they have the same right?
Well, see, and that's where, again, I'm not going to answer that kind of stupid question. We're talking about raising our families, our children.
But a homosexual
it's about having a family, which is what many gays and lesbians have wonderful families, wonderful children, and I'm just not going to let you take me down that road of asking stupid questions.
But, Reverend, you don't want to face reality. That's why, because I'm saying that if you want that right...
Don't ask stupid questions like that. That's totally...
But, Reverend, if you want to have that right, then someone else...
I have the right to have a family, which I have that right, which is a wonderful and beautiful thing.
But you do have the right to live with another man and do what you do, but the problem comes in when you try to impose your right upon majority of people in this country.
You're trying to oppose your religious views that your church, my church, believes in joining two people together. That's a wonderful thing, and we want to do that.
Is your church a homosexual church?
I go to a straight church that happens to be very open to homosexuals.
Is it headed by a homosexual preacher?
We have, our church has a homosexual preacher, but we have another church that doesn't. And they're very open to having holy unions. We believe in that, coming before God and bringing that union together.
Most Americans are against marriage. Hold on, Reverend, hold on. Most Americans are against a marriage between two men or two women. 60% of black Americans are against that. What do you say about that?
Well, I say not most Americans are against it. We know that the radical fundamentalist Christians are definitely out there speaking, against it.
Every time there's a vote on it, Reverend, marriage between one man and one woman, most Americans support a marriage between a man and a woman.
Well, hopefully if people will listen to people like me and I get on more radio shows like this, we'll begin to change the mind of people and they'll start seeing the truth. That's what Truth Wins Out is all about, is to show the truth. And that's what we're going to do.
Reverend, I want to ask about your book. What is Out of the Closet and Into the Light about?
Well, basically, my book talks about all the clobber verses, of course, that come out of the radical fundamentalist Christian churches. And then I talk from it from a psychological standpoint, and I share both the biblical and the psychological understanding. And what I do is answer the myth that's coming out of the radical fundamentalist churches against gays and lesbians. So basically, I'm sharing the truth. I guess I'm still waiting for, of course, Jerry Falwell won't have that opportunity, even though I gave him that opportunity, along with many others, to debate me on this issue, and I'm still waiting today after, 7 years of this book being published, of somebody be willing to sit down and debate me on the issue.
Were you raised by your father and mother?
Yes, I was.
And they both were in the home the whole time?
Oh, yes, I had a wonderful, wonderful home.
And who had the most influence over your life, your father or your mother?
My father.
You were closer to your father than your mother?
Oh, so now we're going to go on the whole theory. Now I'm going to bring a theory, which
I'm only asking right now, Reverend. Were you closest to your father?
I'm closer to my mother, which that doesn't prove anything. The fact I can show you a heterosexual man that's more closer. No.
I'm only asking you right now. I'm asking.
Well, I'm just saying, let's bring the fact out of what you're trying to say. That because I wasn't closer to my father, that's what made me a homosexual. Totally unfounded in psychology. American Psychological Association says that is bunk. And it is bunk.
But Reverend, you were closest to your mother than your father, right?
Definitely.
But
I was close to my father too. I have a wonderful relationship with my dad.
But closest to your mom, right?
I am, yes.
And are they both living now?
Yes, both my parents are living.
And do they know that you're a homosexual?
Yes, they do.
And did your father accept it?
Both my father and mother are both very much Southern Baptists, and they struggle with it. But they love me for what I'm doing.
But they don't accept the lifestyle.
They don't agree in all of it.
They don't accept your lifestyle. And
they don't, right, because of their religious church beliefs.
Not because they see that as wrong, and they would rather that the son become a man than to be confused.
Well, I am a man. I served in the United States Marine Corps, so please, I'm a man. I serve my country very well, and I'm very much a man, and it's proven that in many ways.
Have you ever been with a woman, Reverend?
Yes, I have. No
Okay.
sexual attraction whatsoever.
No sexual attraction?
None.
Okay, 888-77-53773. 888-77-JESSE. We're going to take a break and come back and wind down with the Reverend, squeeze in some calls, all right? Tell you how to get his book. Back in a moment. Back with Reverend Jerry Stephenson. He is the author of Out of the Closet Into the Light. He's a spokesperson for Truth Wins Out, where they go after homosexuals who have overcome. I guess to prove that you cannot overcome. And Reverend, one quick question about your parents. Had your father been married to another man and your mother to a woman, would you be here today?
Well, probably could be. They could have done, artificial insemination or something. You never know.
But otherwise, would you be here today?
I probably wouldn't without them. But
and so, do you think? And that alone doesn't say to you that there's something wrong with this lifestyle?
So you're going to say that every woman that can't have
no, just
children,
explain that.
No, so you're saying
no, just stay with that alone. Just stay with that. Had your father been married to another man and your mother to a woman, and they didn't do the artificial inseminations kind of thing, you would not be here today. That doesn't tell you that there's something wrong with this? No,
there's nothing wrong with that. Just because I wouldn't be here. What was that? What does that mean? It's wrong that because a woman's barren, she can't have children. Therefore, she's to be looked up on wrongly.
No, but God's intent, Reverend, God's intent, and the reason for creating man and woman was so that we can replenish the earth.
Well, when God started, let's look at Genesis. The Hebrew word there is book of beginnings. God wasn't dumb in the fact that he created man and woman to bring about human life. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody is going to bring about human life, even though gays and lesbians do bring about human life. Let's make that a fact. And so the thing is, just because, and just to say that it's all about just having children, it's not. And, you know,
that's the only purpose to get married is to reproduce.
Oh, really? The only purpose, not about love and having.
No.
I mean, I think Adam was lonely in the garden, and he wanted a companion like the rest of
but not
the
in the manner
God provided him.
Reverend, not in the manner that you know. He wasn't like lonely that he had to have a woman like that, Reverend.
The Bible said he was lonely, and God provided him with a companion.
Let me ask you about
Genesis chapter 2.
Let me ask you about spirituality, Reverend. It's interesting that you can find scriptures on other issues, but you could not find one scripture to support homosexuality. Don't you find that interesting?
The scriptures didn't say that Jesus went to the bathroom, but we know he did. So the Bible doesn't give us an everyday precept on everything. It wasn't an important issue.
Let me ask you spiritual questions here.
Yes.
Do you believe that that there are good and evil spirits?
Yes, I've seen a lot even in churches, yes.
And do you believe that those spirits, either good or evil, can make a home inside of mankind?
I believe that people do make homes. Many people healthy homes.
No, that's not what I'm asking, Reverend. As a Reverend, I'm asking, do you believe that good and or evil spirits can make a home inside of their human body?
Do I believe that? I do. They do.
They do, right?
No doubt.
Is it possible that homosexuals are something happens in their lives, whether it's a dominating mother or a mother who is too weak, or they have been traumatized by some type of terrible event in their life, molested or raped? Do you believe that if children were to go through those type of traumas and they resent it or hate what is happening to them, that those evil spirits can enter into their bodies and make a home inside of them? The spirit of homosexuality or any other evil spirit, do you believe that it can make a home inside of the body?
Well, it's the same thing with heterosexuals.
No, give me a yes or no first. Hey.
I don't. No, that's a stupid question, and it has nothing to do with that. Because I can show you heterosexual people that come out of a mother who was domineering, a father who didn't show love. American Psychological Association, Psychiatric
Reverend, you keep quoting the American Psychological Association.
Let's think back.
Let's go back to the spirit. Let's go back to the spirit. Hey, let's go back to the spirit.
Well, the spirit, I'm going back to what the truth is. I don't know what you mean by spirit.
Do you believe, as a reverend, and you have all these degrees, so you've studied the Bible a lot, do you believe that if a person is traumatized and they hate the person who violate or traumatize their lives, that spirit...
No,
hold on.
I never suffered any of those things.
So how do you think you became like your mother?
I am born a homosexual.
How do you think you became like your mother, Reverend?
What's that?
How did you become like your mother?
I didn't become like my mother. I don't know. You are way off in whatever path of stuff that's not even factual.
But don't you agree that the spirit...
I don't know where you're going with that you think I'm like my mother. I love my mother. My mother's got a lot of wonderful qualities.
So you're not like her at all?
And I got a lot of qualities of my mother.
Like what?
She's an awesome lady. That's
like what? What type of qualities you have that is like your mother?
I'm very loving, very passionate. I am very intelligent.
So do you think a man...
And my father was very intelligent. My father was very loving and passionate.
Reverend, you think it's normal?
I don't know where you go with this. Like, you got your whole sexual identity totally confused.
You think that it's normal that a man should be loving and passionate and like a woman?
Yes. What is wrong with people being loving and compassionate? I don't know where your psychology comes from, but it's definitely unhealthy.
I want to go back to the spirit.
Jesus said of John the Baptist that he was very loving and compassionate. He was the beloved of Jesus. So I don't know where you're going with this love thing. And
Reverend, hold on, calm down.
Girls going to pink rooms, boys going to blue rooms, you're totally messed up in your whole sexual identity.
Reverend, let me ask, calm down for a minute because of time. You were mostly influenced by your mother. Your personality is like that of your mother. And as far as you know, you were not raped or sexually molested, right?
No, I never was. So, I don't know where you're going with that. I can show you.
Is it possible
that homosexuals get raped every day, too? So
hold on, Reverend. Is it possible that you had a dominated mother or a mother who were a mother who were very loving and compassionate, submissive?
I'm not going to let...
That you resented, that you resented her, and now the spirit of your mom has made a home inside of you?
It's bunk. It's all bunk. That's all bunk. I'm not going to let you go there with it because that is totally ludicrous. That is not what you're going to find. That's why we're the laughing stock sometimes in the Christian community, because we come up with ridiculous things like this that the American Psychological Association says we're stupid.
So how did
Why make those kind of statements? I know straight men that had loving mothers.
So, Reverend, as a man,
straight men who followed their mothers more than their fathers. So, what's your point?
As a male, Reverend, don't you wonder sometimes how did you become so much like your mother since you were male?
You know what? I served in the United States Marine Corps. I did very well.
But you have homosexuals in the military.
I also play athletics. I'm very athletic and macho. I don't know where you're getting off on this. And I'm also very, very, in my feminine side, very loving and compassionate, which both my mother and my father were. So I don't know where you're going with all
Was your father gay too?
No, my father's straight.
Oh, okay. Let me ask.
No, it's not a learned behavior, so I'll correct you on that.
Hold on, Reverend, because of time, and then we'll tell folks how to get your book.
Yes.
You do believe, though, that spirits can make home inside of human bodies, right?
Well, I think that if we don't walk as we should, Christians can find themselves walking in darkness.
So
and we know many Christians that are not telling the truth.
And
they're telling lies. And but thank God for God's grace, because in the end they will stand with God's grace, and His blood will cover them.
Have you ever examined that the possibility of maybe you said you were not molested or raped, that the resentment toward your mother or your father has caused you to become a homosexual? Like another, don't you feel you have another identity inside of you?
No, I'm no different than a heterosexual man.
But a heterosexual man don't feel like a homosexual.
Well, that's because they're heterosexual, just as I'm homosexual. I'm not heterosexual in any way.
But will you at least examine... Hey,
I
Reverend.
was born a homosexual, and I'm attracted to men. It's a wonderful, godly thing. I think it's awesome.
Will you at least examine the possibility that a spirit has made a home inside of you?
No, I don't. I have the Spirit of Christ in me.
But that's
the spirit that I have and I walk by.
Is the Spirit of Christ gay?
My Spirit of Christ it has no sex, as the Bible says. There is no male or female in heaven. I simply live by God's grace, Ephesians 2:8-9, for by grace was I saved. Through faith has nothing to do with me. It was a gift from God, and that I'm thankful for, and I appreciate
Where did your anger come from?
My anger is when people like you say the most ridiculous, stupid things, because then the world looks at us and say, what a bunch of stupid people.
But, Reverend, even if I didn't say anything, the world can recognize wrong from right.
Well, and as a Christian, I find many of the things that you have said totally out of bounds of any kind of reality, any kind of logic, any kind of really true understanding of facts.
Well, when God say that it's not them, but it's the sin that's made a home inside of them, that they are possessed, what was He referring to? If the spirits don't make a home inside of us? Well,
I'm going to let God be my judgment. And Jesus said in Matthew 7:1, why look at the speck in your brother's eye when you got a log in your own?
So you're not going to judge. You're not going to judge the Christians anymore.
And as Paul, it's not your place to judge; it's God's place to judge.
So why do you judge the Christians?
I'm very secure with my relationship with God, and I stand.
Hey, Reverend,
in His grace every morning.
Reverend, why do you judge the Christians then?
I'm not judging. I'm looking at Scripture and saying, go by the truth. And I'm about truth, and that's what we're about in Truth Wins Out. We're about telling the truth, and we're going to get the truth. Because you know what? I got thousands and thousands of people around this world that I got to be concerned for their physical and their spiritual well-being, which people like you are pushing out the doors of the church, and it's not your place.
One final question, then you tell folks how to get your book. Can you be of the spirit of homosexuality, which is not the truth, and still be of the truth?
Well, I believe I'm in the truth, and until somebody can prove me otherwise, which I doubt if they can, that I am about truth, and my homosexuality is a beautiful gift from God. He made
tell folks how to get your book, Reverend.
I've been made in His image, and that's an awesome thing.
God is not a homosexual, Reverend.
I don't know what God is.
I know you're not a homosexual.
I know God is love. I know God is love.
Reverend, tell the folks how to get your book. Tell the folks about your book.
Yes, they can. If they want to, they can go to my website, drjerry.net, or they can, call me, and my number's right there on my website. At drjerry.net, my book's right there.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
All right, now. We're out of time, folks. We did not get to the calls today, but we will tomorrow. Thank you so much. Check out my website at bondinfo.org. bondinfo.org. Have a great day. Think about what you've heard, folks. You can decide for yourself. Take care.